Hi everybody, Brian here from quantlabs.net. Just wanted to go over last night, being Saturday, October 6th. Volatility on Bitcoin has come down. I've talked about it in a post on my back end on the analytics. There is a video available on my YouTube channel, the most recent one. Anyways, just wanted to show you since last night. Right now, the markets for crypto are up quite a bit. As you can see here, there's some really good moves. Ethereum USD is up 3.51%, and Litecoin is up 3.2% against the US dollar. So that's pretty strong. So when you look at the number of positions, it was quite weak last night, but the system still tried to take on some positions, but clearly you can see here on the ROCP, rate of change percent, on the closing, nothing was lost. It was quite weak, more negative than what it is now, but here's the nice surprise. These two positions right here have done quite well with Bitcoin Gold against Bitcoin and Bitcoin Gold against Ethereum. We'll talk about that. So collectively, they've added 14.7%. And the other thing is the system is technically still trading from the same trading session. I've talked about this numerous times about shutting down a system when you achieve really good goals. In this case, if I was doing this in the real world, I should have shut down the system, because if I set my trading goal of 1% for the day, 2% or 3%, I've easily exceeded that with this 14.7. But now, because I've kept this system running, I've now taken on a position that lost 1.49%, so it'd be down obviously. So we wouldn't want that, and that's where the fear and greed comes in. So I'm purposely testing this system to see what would happen to continue it. Now, the other big thing is I want you to also understand, which is becoming a very big factor, is the kind of things I'm watching. I'm now only watching the top 30 cryptocurrency pairs, and that means 90% of them are not being watched at all because of the crazy volatility. And the worst part about them is that they have no volume, and also they can have very, very quick down moves, which your system can't catch, and you could take on a lot of losses. Considering we had a weak market last night, it held strong pretty good by trying to put on some positions here and didn't take any losses until this one. But we'll talk about Bitcoin Gold in a little bit. So one of the news spreadsheets that I'm able to generate is this one called what I call most profitable. So this is analyzing, everything's now 100% dependent on Binance, with the exception of this, because Binance is a 100% crypto virtual currency exchange. I am not able to get cryptocurrency measurements against fiat currency like US dollars, so I take this data, only these 5 pairs, from Coinbase. Other than that, everything else is from Binance, whereas opposed this used to be from, or this spreadsheet was from CoinMarketCap. They're going to be going paid as of next month in November, so I just decided, screw it, I'll rewrite part of it and only grab data from Binance, which makes sense because now I'm only watching, let's say, the top 30 pairs. So here's the pairs that I'm watching. Actually, it's 48 pairs or 47 pairs. But these are the ones that have the best or fastest changing. 14% in the last hour. 3-hour change is Sia Coin. So I measured that yesterday. Nothing has changed. But here's the interesting one, where the top 2 are definitely Sia Coin and Bitcoin Gold. As you can see in the system, the only winning positions that we took on were Bitcoin Gold for both against Ethereum and Bitcoin. And the interesting thing is this seems to be quite good because we're up 12%. But here's the critical part. When you look at the logs, now I have 2 logs here. First log is when you look at these two winning positions right here, this is the key. Now, I'll never put this up on anywhere except I'm just showing you to show you something, just to show you how fast this is moving. The system, and you'll see how it breaks out. So that the position was taken at 1:01 in the morning, where it took on the position. As I said, we don't worry about stop losses anymore. This methodology seems to work better. Rate of change percent was up 6.25% in. This PD is minute, 1 minute. So every time you see one of these, it's a minute by minute check in the markets on these positions. So what happened was this position was taken on not even for a minute. It broke through my criteria to close out the position, and within a minute, I was already up 6%. I call that luck. I'll see if we're going to start taking on some negative positions as of tomorrow. If I was to work with a theory of, yes, I will shut this down, but I'm just going to let it run today and see what happens. See how many negative positions I'll take on. But at the end of the day, it only took a minute to get that kind of move and close out the position. And then we also had the exact same time, I might add, 103 as well, 35. It closed out Bitcoin Gold against Bitcoin, but also Bitcoin Gold against Ethereum. Again, 1 minute only. So it's that fast moving for this particular asset. So let's check out the theory of how to capture these kind of moves. Now, I'm going to use either one of these, Bitcoin Gold or against Bitcoin itself, and show you how random this stuff is. So I'm going to go to the end here, and you'll see how crazy this currency is, or currency pair. So right here is the position that we took on at roughly midnight. So midnight rolls around, 12:30 a.m. This position was looked at and a signal was generated. Here we have the RSI, and I'm going to go dig into this RSI in a bit just to show you how random everything is. But I've loosened the conditions of the entry. So the 15 hour had a 4.1% move, the hourly had a 3.7 move, but the rate of change on the 5 minute was not as strong at 0.82. So when you look at that, you go, there's nothing unusual there. But at the same time, something happened here for both Bitcoin Gold against Ethereum and Bitcoin Gold against Bitcoin to make this entry happen at the same time. So when you look at, and again, I'm not programming my system to do this. This is just sheer luck on the market data for both Bitcoin Gold against Bitcoin and Bitcoin Gold against Ethereum. So I'm not programming that, but there was something that happened that I benefited from. So I'm sure it was a whale trader of some kind. So when you look at the RSI, it's quite high on the 5, 15 minute and hourly. But here's the interesting thing. The rate of change was a little higher than the rate of change in the 5 minute for the Bitcoin against Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin Gold against Ethereum. So it was a little higher, but it was still fairly high on the 15 and hourly as well. And the other factor is obviously is the volume. Okay, that is something you always should pay attention to as well. That's a big factor. Okay, so let's start looking at the different historical things that would have led up to this. So I'm going to just follow in the previous run-ups to this pretty good position move. And again, this is real market data. This is not simulated data. This is real market data. Okay, so we're going to start. Oh, let me go back here. Now, before I take on any position, the other big factor that I use as a secondary check to prevent bad positions, we test the momentum over the last 3 hours. So we have to hit a certain threshold in order to ensure that that position before, or the entry, is going to be positive to reduce the risk of it going negative. And so far so good at all levels. but from what I'm seeing, obviously it did pass because um, then those positions would have not been taken. So these two momentum tests did did pass. So once again, let's go back into the historical as well. So right now we're looking at 1221, and this is done every 5 minutes of these checks. So you can clearly see RSI is still fairly high, but look at this. The 15-minute is now gone negative over the last 15 minutes preceding this time. So when you look at Bitcoin Gold, yes, we were able to capture these up moves, but the one that went bad here at 1.49 is just another example to show you how volatile this crypto is. Okay, so be aware of that, and that's one of the reasons why I do those momentum checks to make sure we don't have bad positions. But as I said, we cannot guarantee it will work because this particular crypto pair is very volatile, as you'll soon see. So again, you can see here we're down, not a lot, 0.65 on a 15-minute basis. So when you look at the previous one, look at this. My system will close out BTG, Bitcoin Gold, against Bitcoin due to negative rate of change. What does that mean? Is that my system will do a measurement on my watch list here in the database. Here, all these pairs do get removed if there's too much negative action. So let me see here. So you could clearly see what's going on here. So this has been removed because this ROC, rate of change, 5-minute, is negative. And I bet you, and you can see here also the big factor is the RSI is much lower than it needs to be. Previously, the RSI was around 70 plus. So you can clearly see that the momentum's dropped off, and that's why you have the rate of change much lower than it was at 1 a.m. And this is only a span of about an hour, just to show you how random this is. Now, again, you can see that the Bitcoin Gold on the 5-minute basis is very low, but when you look at the 15-minute, it's much higher. So it hits these peaks, these peak and troughs, or valleys and troughs, what do you call it? I can never get the saying right, how extreme it can be in a very short amount of time in a 15-minute. And again, there's no rhyme or reason why this is happening. I just think it's something to do with whale traders on Binance, maybe either influencing the pricing, or there's no factor that would explain why these extreme moves are taking place. So here again, 2216, 15 minutes prior, our RSI is still fairly strong, and our RSI on a 15-minute is very high on a 15-minute basis. But like 15 minutes after that, it was much lower, and it was a much more negative on the rate of change. But when you look at the hourly now, it's down 2.8%. So you can clearly see how volatile this thing is. So let me just take it back one more. So here we're at 2042, 1142, 15-minute, now we're half an hour. RSI is still fairly strong. RSI is still fairly strong on the 5 and 15-minute, even the hourly. But the rate of change again is strong on the 3.2, 5.7 on the 5 and 15-minute time frame. But on the hourly, it is negative, and it's 2.8. That's a pretty big swing. And you can see that the volume is not as strong as it was an hour earlier. So people think, well, that's a pretty hard currency to trade, which it is, but there is sometimes the opportunity there to take on the position. So again, here we are now at 2037. RSI is very strong again at 80, 84 in the 5 and 15-minute, 63. So that's pretty strong still, but it's not as strong as an hour before. And the rate of change again is 3.6, 5.7. But again, an hour before this, it was down negative 2.8. Very, very volatile. And the volume is fairly low. So again, look how strong it is here on a 5-minute basis. 97, 92, and an hourly it's at 63. But still, we have very strong rate of change on the 5 and 15 minute, but yet it's very weak on the hourly. This would have been a good time to get in, but everything comes down to timing on when my system goes out and measures everything. If I was to do a check on a minute by minute basis, I could do it, but then again, at some point, I'd be definitely breaking Binance's server cap on how many requests I can make. So I can only do so much pinging on these currencies. But the other way to minimize it is to have a very tight control on your watch list. So we're down to only one, and this could change in a matter within an hour. It could be back to up to 20 currencies that it's watching. But the system will continue to look for negative moves, and it will drop them off the watch list and therefore remove those non-necessary excessive pings back to other Binance servers to request for the data. So continuing along, again, we're up, and this is 15-minute time checks. RSI is really strong at 95, 92, 63, and now we're starting to see some strong momentum at this point on the 5 and 15 minute, but very weak on the hourly. So if you traded this 1 hour earlier, you would have lost money. But if you were to trade it exactly at this time, held on the position for 5, 10, 15 minutes, you would be up 6%. So that's pretty extreme. But if we continue looking at everything, it's the same thing. 95 is very strong on the RSI, and that's usually why you do get these drops so extreme, because there's more, I'm going to say, systems come in to trade these. Obviously, at some point, they're probably scalping for 10 minutes, get the market opportunity, take profit very quickly, and then dump the trade, and then you have these extreme moves down. And that is how the world of cryptocurrency works. But obviously, I just don't think a human really could do this type of trading, but this is the proof that this sort of thing does happen and does exist. Same pattern at 2017, and same. And I could go on, and you can clearly see the volume is quite high. The RSI 86, 80, 63. And we have some up moves here on the 5 and 15 minute, 2.6, 2.7, and again, goes back to negative. Okay, so I want you to understand this is how this stuff works, and this is one of the big reasons why if you're up 14%, shut everything down and be happy. We start midnight next day to go at it again, and hopefully the markets are going to work in your favor. Okay, I need to stress that, but I'm going to still test it to see how things work, because now I'm only focusing on the top 30, as you know, top 30 crypto pairs. So I just wanted to show that to you, how I think things work. Also, let me see if I have any. I've already gone through that. Anyways, so that's what I want to show you, and hopefully this will help you out about the randomness of these crypto pairs later.